Tonight, we're drifting into the dense green heart of the rainforest, where ancient stones whisper stories you were always meant to hear. The air is heavy with the scent of wet leaves and earth, and somewhere in the shadows, cicadas hum like gentle clock gears marking time's eternal rhythm. You're standing peacefully in front of a pyramid that has endured through countless seasons, carved by hands that have become one with the earth over 1,000 years ago, and yet there's something carved into it that feels comfortably familiar. A message, a gentle warning from a civilization that understood the natural cycles of all things. So, as you settle in for this journey, take a moment to breathe deeply and let yourself sink into tonight's story together. The jungle breathes around you, damp and eternal. You walk forward slowly, gently brushing aside vines as the forest welcomes you deeper. Each step sinks softly into moss-covered stones, the bones of ancient causeways leading to cities long embraced by trees. In your hand, you trace the smooth grooves of glyphs carved into stelae, those tall, upright slabs the Maya used like history books made of living rock. And tonight, those rocks are sharing their stories with you. Because the Maya didn't just record births, wars, and festivals, they carved wisdom into stone, prophecies, gentle predictions about the turning of great wheels. Some carved calendars don't just count time, they seem to smile at you knowingly, saying, "We understood that all things have their seasons." Imagine hosting a gathering and carving into the invitation, "Remember, all beautiful things are temporary." That's the peaceful wisdom you're receiving. You glance up, and through the canopy, you glimpse the outline of temples, their tops still reaching toward the sky like patient fingers. These structures aren't fragile ruins, they're gentle survivors. And for all their quiet grandeur, they carry a soothing truth. The very people who built them understood that one day the forest would reclaim them, and not just forgotten like old songs, transformed like cities becoming gardens, rituals becoming legends, and silence becoming a different kind of music. The first time archaeologists realized the Maya might have been aware of their own natural cycles, they were fascinated. After all, most civilizations carved boastful messages about their eternal nature. Pharaohs claimed their pyramids would outlast time itself. Romans carved their initials everywhere like they owned the world. But the Maya? Sometimes their glyphs murmur with an almost gentle acceptance, as if they were whispering, "Cherish this while it blooms, for even gods know that seasons change and corn has its time for growing and its time for rest." Now, historians still ponder whether these prophecies were meant as literal predictions, gentle reminders, or simply a kind of peaceful wisdom. But the effect remains the same. You're standing before a culture that may have gazed at the horizon of natural change and said, "Yes, we see the turning of the wheel." And truly, that's exactly the kind of understanding you want from people who've learned to live in harmony with time itself. As you press deeper into the ruins, the forest embraces you more closely, softening all sound. A gentle drizzle begins to fall, dropping peacefully from leaf to leaf. You picture a priest standing on these very stones 1,000 years ago, chanting gratefully to the gods of rain while watching the sky with reverence. You feel the gentle pull of connection, because isn't this just what humans have always done? Dance with nature until we find our rhythm with her eternal song. There's a beautiful detail that makes this even more enchanting. Some local legends whisper that the Maya carved not only their own cycles of change and renewal, but cosmic ones too. Vast ages of creation and transformation stretching before and after humanity like an endless, gentle dance. If you've heard people speaking about 2012 being the end of an age, well, you can thank the Maya calendar for that bit of mystical poetry. The beautiful part? The Maya never actually said the world would end in 2012. They simply marked it as the close of one cycle and the beginning of another, which is basically the stone-carved equivalent of watching December fade into January and celebrating that new seasons always come. How wonderful! And still, there's a peaceful depth to it, this gentle awareness of time, cycles, natural changes. You can almost feel that they were simply counting the rhythm of something eternal, perhaps the rains, perhaps the growing seasons, perhaps the natural flow of the very cities you're wandering through. Picture it. You run your fingers across the smooth glyphs. You see the faces of kings carved in stone, gazing out with wide, thoughtful eyes. Their lips are set in expressions of quiet wisdom, eternal prayer. But beneath the record of their achievements, you sense their deep understanding. It's as if even in triumph, they felt connected to something larger than themselves. And here's where the gentle humor writes itself. Imagine you're a Maya farmer, warm from tending corn in the golden sun, and the royal scribe announces, "Wonderful news! The king has made peace with our neighbors. Also, the calendar suggests our great cycle will complete itself in a few centuries." You'd probably just nod peacefully and say, "Beautiful, but could someone help with the harvest celebration first?" Humans find the same gentle rhythms across time. The rainforest is so thick now you can barely see the city's full scale, but rest assured, these were once thriving communities of tens of thousands of souls. And yet, walking through the ruins in this peaceful twilight, all you hear is the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft croak of frogs, the soothing drip of water into ancient cisterns. The cities knew their time would pass, and they did. The silence is their gentle lullaby. Your mind drifts softly. What does it mean for a culture to understand its own natural cycles? Is it wisdom? Is it peace? Or is it simply the deep knowing of people who had learned to read the patterns of the universe? Because if the Maya were right, then perhaps change isn't a tragedy. It's built into the system like seasons. The wheel turns, civilizations rise like spring, they flourish like summer, and they rest like winter. And somewhere in future time, gentle archaeologists will uncover our forgotten devices and quiet suburban gardens and say, yes, they probably understood the turning of time too. For now though, you're still in the jungle, tracing glyphs in the cool stone, while the whispers of ancient wisdom echo just softly enough to guide you gently toward dreams, where those patient kings might still be sharing their secrets about the beautiful cycles of all things. The gentle drizzle fades into a soft mist as you continue along the ancient causeways, your footsteps finding their quiet rhythm. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by countless seasons, still solid enough to remind you of the patient effort that went into laying them with such care. Slowly, the forest canopy parts like curtains, and there it rests, a city that once reached toward the stars. The pyramid ahead rises like a peaceful mountain from the earth, its steps climbing higher and higher until the top seems to rest gently among the clouds. Imagine standing here 1,000 years ago. The plaza beneath your feet wouldn't be silent, it would hum with the gentle buzz of life. Thousands of people moving in comfortable rhythms, traders sharing stories over baskets of cacao beans, children playing between market stalls, and nobles walking gracefully with colorful feathers swaying softly in their headdresses. Every sense would be gently filled. The warm aroma of roasted maize and sweet copal incense, the soft gleam of jade jewelry catching sunlight, and the steady, comforting beat of drums echoing against the welcoming stone walls. You tilt your head back, gazing peacefully at the pyramid summit. It's not just an enormous stairway to the heavens. This was a stage for celebration, a throne for wisdom, a place of prayer, and a window to the cosmos all woven into one. Priests would climb those steep steps in their beautiful robes bright with quetzal feathers, while the community below watched with reverence. At the top, they performed ceremonies meant to keep the cosmos in gentle balance. It wasn't theater, it was devotion. Because if the gods felt welcomed and honored, everyone's crops would flourish. And truly, no amount of preparation could replace that sacred connection. One peaceful fact settles over you here. The Maya cities weren't just villages gathered around a temple. They were sprawling communities of learning and culture, some rivaling the size of the great cities across the ocean. Tikal, for example, may have been home to 100,000 souls at its peak, and its pyramids reached higher than almost anything in the distant lands beyond the sea. The scale alone fills you with quiet wonder. You're not walking through simple villages. You're resting within the gentle ruins of a center of knowledge and wisdom. And yet, here comes the beautiful detail. These massive pyramids, they weren't built by forced labor. Unlike distant lands where workers toiled under harsh conditions, the Maya cities rose thanks to the willing hands of community members who, remarkably, saw construction as a sacred offering. You'd think moving enormous limestone blocks under the warm sun would inspire complaints, but to the Maya, it was like contributing to a cosmic garden. Share your strength today, nurture rain and harvest for generations to come. As you picture that, you can't help but smile at the thought of ancient project coordinators walking peacefully around the pyramid bases, murmuring gently, "If we complete this temple by the equinox, the sun god will bless us with his most radiant smile." Now, let's drift back into the plaza with your mind's eye. Look closely and peacefully. These aren't just beautiful buildings arranged by chance. The city is designed like a celestial map spread across the earth. The pyramids, palaces, and ceremonial courts align gracefully with astronomical events, solstices, equinoxes, even the gentle rise of Venus. You realize the architecture itself was a calendar made of stone, ticking peacefully with the cosmos. The whole city is whispering softly, "We are part of the great dance. We know how the stars move, and we've built our lives to move with their eternal rhythm." Historians still wonder gently whether this precision came from religious devotion or practical wisdom. After all, if you're a leader and you can predict when the sun will rest during an eclipse, it's natural for your people to trust that you're in harmony with the gods. Oh, you want to see our connection to the heavens? Watch the sun take its rest when I raise my hands. Don't mind that it's written in our astronomers' careful notes from seasons past. Wisdom loves a gentle demonstration of understanding. As the soft fog lifts, you wander further in, and the ghost of the marketplace forms peacefully around you. Imagine the gentle conversations, the friendly exchanges, the quiet hum of 1,000 small connections. A farmer offers baskets of golden maize in exchange for sharp obsidian tools. Merchants spread out brilliant quetzal feathers so beautiful they look like captured pieces of rainbow. Jade beads rest like drops of green starlight. And somewhere in a quiet corner, someone is sharing chocolate. Not the sweet, creamy blend you know, but thick, rich, frothy cacao, prepared with reverence for special occasions. You taste it in your imagination, and honestly, it tastes like liquid wisdom. No sweeteners, no milk, just pure, concentrated earth energy. And through it all, rising gently above, the pyramids stand as peaceful guardians. Imagine being a child in that plaza, your whole world framed by these stone mountains reaching toward the sky. You'd grow up knowing the city wasn't just a collection of homes, it was the beating heart of something beautiful, each building humming in gentle harmony with the stars above. But here's the thoughtful understanding that settles over you as you gaze at those temples. For all their strength and beauty, these cities were part of a delicate dance. They looked permanent, but they depended on the careful balance of water, crops, trade, and the faith of the people. And if even one of those elements shifted, the whole pattern would need to transform. You can sense the natural wisdom already flowing beneath the surface. You press your palm against the cool limestone of a pyramid wall, its surface still etched with faint, gentle carvings. You picture the skilled masons shaping these stones, working peacefully under the jungle sun, certain they were building monuments that would stand as long as the mountains. In a way, they were right. You're here, centuries later, still tracing their beautiful work with reverence. But in another way, they understood something deeper. Their cities would one day rest quietly long before the stone itself returned to Earth. And you realize something quietly beautiful. When cities grow so magnificent they seem to touch the sky, their builders often understand they're creating something that participates in the great cycle of all things. And that understanding is usually the first step toward building with both ambition and humility.
The marketplace dissolves gently behind you, and your ears catch something deeper, more rhythmic. The steady beat of drums flowing through the stone like a peaceful heartbeat. You follow the sound and step into a vast ball court, its walls rising gracefully on either side, like the gentle slopes of a sacred valley carved by thoughtful hands. The court stretches long and narrow, and you can almost see the players. Young men, strong and focused, wearing padded gear to protect their bodies as they moved in ritual dance. The ball, solid rubber and surprisingly heavy, bounces off stone with a deep, satisfying sound. This isn't a simple game of competition. Here, the movements are sacred. The Maya believed the ball game, called pits, wasn't just sport. It was a celebration of the eternal dance between earth and sky, day and night. To play wasn't simply to move a ball, it was to keep the universe itself flowing in its natural rhythm. Imagine the honor. You think it's meaningful when you help your community with daily tasks? Try participating in a ceremony where your movements help maintain the cosmic balance itself. And as the drums pulse gently, the community gathers. Nobles watch from shaded seats, their jewelry catching the warm light. Community members stand together, sharing the excitement and reverence. Some cheer for skillful play, others for the beauty of the ritual itself. And perhaps, just perhaps, a few are wondering if the ceremony will end with special honors for those who played with the greatest devotion to the cosmic dance. Now, a peaceful fact settles over you. Ball courts weren't unique to one city. They were everywhere, hundreds of them scattered across the Maya world like stars, from magnificent ones at Chichen Itza to humble courts in smaller communities. They weren't just places for games, they were theaters for diplomacy. Leaders sometimes settled disagreements by staging ceremonial contests instead of conflicts. And truly, if modern leaders tried to settle arguments with graceful competitions instead of harsh words, the world might flow much more peacefully. But here comes the beautiful detail. Archaeologists once found rubber balls resting in caves, still intact after centuries, as if patiently waiting for the next ceremony. And there's evidence that sometimes the audience placed wagers that were, shall we say, quite generous with family resources. Imagine explaining to your spouse that you traded away your last bag of precious cacao beans because you believed the community team of farmers would outplay the nobles' warriors in their ritual dance. You step closer to the court wall and run your fingers along gentle carvings. Figures are captured mid-motion, hips angled gracefully, arms extended in ceremonial poses, heads crowned with beautiful feathers. And there, more mystifying, images of transformation. Some ball games weren't just about maintaining cosmic rhythm. They ended with ritual offerings, ceremonies woven deeply into their understanding of the sacred cycles. The warm sun rests gently on your skin, and you picture the ceremonies that followed these games. Priests burning sweet incense, smoke curling into the sky like prayers made visible. Kings making small offerings of their own blood onto bark paper, letting drops fall as gifts to the gods. The community grows quiet, the scent of copal fills the air, and everyone trusts that for one more season, one more harvest, the gods will continue their generous blessings. Historians still ponder gently whether ceremonial sacrifice in the ball game was a regular event or a rare, deeply symbolic ritual. Some suggest only captured warriors from conflicts met such transformation. Others believe elite players might have been honored, yes, honored, by offering their lives after achieving perfect play.
It sounds mystifying to us, but if you were raised believing that your transformation kept the universe dancing, you might volunteer too. It's a beautifully logical conclusion in a worldview where gods required constant participation in the great cycles. And here's what touches the heart. These rituals weren't confined to the court. They flowed into plazas, temples, and even palaces. Offering blood was central to Maya understanding of reciprocity. Leaders pierced tongues, ears, and other tender places to share blood as payment for cosmic blessings. It's enough to make you appreciate how gently modern leaders contribute to their communities. You wonder if the nobles secretly found these ceremonial challenging, but participated anyway, the way you might join a community ritual that tests your comfort zone. The drums continue their gentle echo in your heart as you leave the ball court and climb a pyramid staircase. The steps are narrow and steep, each one requesting your careful attention. At the top, you're welcomed by a small temple where priests once kindled sacred fires. From here, you look out peacefully over the city. The view is breathtaking: plazas, palaces, markets, all pulsing with the memory of human community. And yet, from this height, you realize something touching. All of it, every drumbeat and celebration, every marketplace conversation, every ball game was connected to ceremonies that honored the endless giving and receiving between humans and the sacred. And you can't help but smile softly to yourself. Imagine living in a world where your leaders claim the gods need a steady flow of cacao, beautiful ceremonies, and community participation to keep the sun rising each day. Then again, when you think about how we contribute to our communities today, perhaps things haven't changed as much as we might think. The sun dips lower, shadows stretching peacefully across the plazas. The rituals, the games, the offerings, all of it feels both vibrant and delicately balanced. You sense it gently. This civilization that built cities reaching toward the sky also understood that their prosperity depended on constant participation in something larger than themselves. The balance was intricate, the faith complete. And somewhere in the gentle depths of your understanding, you wonder, did the Maya know that one day, no amount of ceremony or celebration would be needed to hold the universe together for them, because they would simply become part of its eternal flow? And you can't help but smile softly to yourself. Imagine living in a world where your leaders claim the gods need a steady flow of cacao, beautiful ceremonies, and community participation to keep the sun rising each day. Then again, when you think about how we contribute to our communities today, perhaps things haven't changed as much as we might think. The sun dips lower, shadows stretching peacefully across the plazas. The rituals, the games, the offerings, all of it feels both vibrant and delicately balanced. You sense it gently. This civilization that built cities reaching toward the sky also understood that their prosperity depended on constant participation in something larger than themselves. The balance was intricate, the faith complete. And somewhere in the gentle depths of your understanding, you wonder, did the Maya know that one day, no amount of ceremony or celebration would be needed to hold the universe together for them, because they would simply become part of its eternal flow? The sun slides lower, painting the pyramids in gentle shades of amber and gold. You descend the temple steps mindfully, carefully, because the stairs are wonderfully narrow, built for contemplation rather than haste. One thoughtful step at a time, you make your way down while an audience of peaceful spirits seems to watch approvingly. At the plaza's edge, your eyes discover something less theatrical but more wondrous. The remnants of stone-carved calendars, enormous slabs etched with glyphs so precise you'd think the Maya were writing poetry with time itself. You kneel beside one, tracing its grooves with gentle fingertips. It doesn't feel like simple numbers, it feels alive with wisdom. The Maya weren't content with a single 365-day solar calendar like we use. They wove several beautiful systems together: the 260 days sacred calendar, the 365-day solar calendar, and the magnificent long count that stretched gracefully across thousands of years. And unlike us, they didn't treat calendars as mere tools for scheduling. These were instruments of destiny, gentle clockwork of cosmic meaning. Imagine your whole life flowing not just by Monday through Sunday, but by a sacred combination of cycles as beautiful as music. Your birthday wasn't simply a date, it carried a cosmic signature, gently influencing your personality and path through life. You think daily planning is complex? Try living in a world where even choosing the perfect day for planting corn required consulting a wise keeper of the 260 days sacred rhythm. And here's the peaceful fact that always fills people with wonder. Maya astronomers calculated the solar year at 365.242 days. That's more accurate than the calendar Europe was using at the same time. They tracked eclipses, planetary movements, even the gentle cycles of Venus with extraordinary precision. When Venus rose as the morning star, it wasn't just beautiful, it was a sign of transformation. Leaders chose the timing of important decisions to match celestial alignments, as if the stars themselves were counselors signing their approval. Now, the beautiful detail. Some of those famous calendar stones don't just track days, they hint at cosmic ages, vast cycles of creation and renewal. One inscription describes previous worlds that completed themselves through fire, flood, or great changes, with ours simply being the latest beautiful attempt. It's like the Maya had a library of cosmic stories about the eternal dance of beginning and becoming. And naturally, centuries later, mystical thinkers took this and created the 2012 transformation of ages theory. The gentle truth? The Maya never said the world would end dramatically, just that a great cycle would complete itself and begin anew. It's the equivalent of feeling mystical excitement on December 31st because your calendar is ready to start fresh pages. How beautifully human. Still, standing here, it's impossible not to feel a gentle stirring. You tilt your head back and watch the night sky beginning to reveal itself. Imagine how dazzling it was before city lights dimmed the stars. Every constellation bright, every planet a glowing jewel. The Maya lived under that vast canvas, watching patterns night after night, turning the sky into their greatest library. And you can't help but feel peacefully small when you realize they mapped time not in years, but millennia, as if they expected not just their civilization, but the universe itself to keep perfect rhythm. Historians still wonder gently whether this devotion to time cycles was meant for daily life or mainly served the wisdom keepers. Some suggest the calendars comforted farmers that the gods followed a reliable schedule, while others believe leaders used them as gentle authority. See, even the stars agree that this is the perfect moment for our ceremony. Whatever the purpose, the calendars became both comfort and profound responsibility. Because what happens when the cycles suggest great changes are flowing toward you? You can't exactly debate with a carved prophecy written in stone. From your quiet place in the plaza, you picture a festival timed perfectly to an equinox. Priests climb the temple stairs at dawn, and the rising sun casts a perfect shadow of a serpent gracefully sliding down the pyramid's edge. The community gasps in reverent wonder, feeling certain that the god Kukulkan himself has descended to bless the city. For a moment, everyone knows the universe is in perfect harmony, but you can almost hear the gentle thoughts rippling through the crowd. If the wise keepers can welcome a god through mathematics, they understand something beautiful about the way everything connects. You chuckle softly with affection. Imagine explaining to a friend why you're running late, and they reply, "Well, Venus wasn't in the right house for departing." That's basically how Maya leaders explained the timing of celebrations, decisions, or important changes. And the people trusted this deeply because when the sky itself confirmed the schedule, who wouldn't want to dance in rhythm with such cosmic wisdom? You leave the plaza and follow a raised causeway out of the city, its stones gleaming softly under the gentle light of stars. Every step echoes with the sense that you're walking along a timeline carved in living rock. And as the jungle embraces you more closely, you realize something beautifully peaceful. The calendars didn't just measure time, they turned it into a sacred dance. When your understanding of life says everything follows cosmic rhythms, then change isn't a failure. It's simply the next movement already choreographed by the stars themselves. And perhaps, just perhaps, the Maya weren't predicting their own ending as much as they were flowing peacefully with inevitability. A civilization so devoted to cycles couldn't help but understand that their golden days had natural rhythms like seasons. You feel the gentle wisdom of that realization, standing under a sky that has already witnessed countless civilizations rise and rest, and will witness many more flowing like rivers toward the sea, including, eventually, our own gentle transformation into whatever comes next. The night deepens peacefully as you drift farther down the causeway, but your path leads to something even more essential than pyramids and calendars. Ahead lies the gentle shimmer of water, moonlight dancing softly across its surface like scattered silver coins. You've come to one of the Maya reservoirs, a sacred pool carved lovingly from the earth, lined with smooth stone and fed by the sky's generous rain. In this world, water isn't just life, it's liquid blessing. You crouch at the edge, dipping your fingers into the cool, welcoming surface. The air is rich with the peaceful songs of frogs, and the jungle breathes with the sweet scents of wet stone and soft moss. You imagine what this place looked like when it pulsed with daily purpose. People carrying water in beautiful clay vessels, families gathering to fill containers, priests chanting grateful prayers to Chak, the rain god, while watching the sky with reverent hope that the heavens would continue their generous gifts. Here's the peaceful fact that fills archaeologists with quiet admiration. Maya cities like Tikal, Calakmul, and Caracol weren't built beside flowing rivers like other great civilizations. No Nile, no great flowing waterways, no mountain streams. Instead, they relied on rainwater and brilliant reservoir systems designed with loving care. They carved artificial lakes, sometimes sealed with layers of clay and limestone to hold every precious drop, and then filtered the water through beds of clean sand. For a people living in a climate with generous rains and restful dry seasons, this was nothing short of beautiful wisdom. But even wisdom sometimes flows into new patterns. You look closer and notice gentle cracks in the ancient stone. Archaeologists have discovered that some reservoirs eventually became touched with natural minerals and algae, making the water less pure over time. Imagine the thoughtfulness required when clear, inviting water needed to be carefully tested before drinking. It's like nature's gentle reminder, even the most beautiful gifts require constant gratitude and careful tending. And here comes the mystical detail. There's evidence the Maya sometimes performed ceremonies in the water itself. Sacred cenotes, natural sinkholes that opened like doorways to the underworld, were used for offerings, from precious jade beads to deeply symbolic gifts. Divers have recovered beautiful artifacts from their depths, as if the gods themselves received presence in those dark, sacred waters. So when you rest beside this reservoir, it's not just a well, it's an altar where every drop carried prayers. The beautiful mystery? Historians still wonder gently whether prolonged dry seasons were part of the natural rhythm that helped transform Maya civilization. Climate records suggest centuries of changing rainfall patterns arrived around the time the great cities began their peaceful transition. Crops adapted to new rhythms, reservoirs reflected different skies, and the rain god Chak danced to slower songs. Was it nature's wisdom calling for change? Or did the cities need to learn new ways of living with the forests, perhaps discovering that too many trees cut for lime plaster and building timber could shift the rainfall patterns themselves? It's a gentle circle of cause and effect that no glyph has fully explained. You stand slowly and follow the sound of rustling leaves to higher ground, where you can see the layout of the city resting peacefully below. The reservoirs gleam softly like mirrors scattered across the jungle, reflecting starlight like earthbound constellations. You realize these weren't just practical. Water management was community wisdom. Guide the flow of water, guide the flow of life. Imagine being a farmer watching the sky hopefully, waiting for rain, then being told by the water keepers, rest peacefully, we'll share water when the ceremonies are complete and the rains feel welcomed. That's less about control, more about sacred reciprocity with the sky itself. You can almost picture the gentle cooperation. A farmer brings her clay pot to a reservoir reflecting the morning sky. The priest, standing nearby with feathers swaying in the breeze, reminds her softly, the gods love offerings before the rains return in full abundance. The farmer glances at her family, trusting and patient, then at the sky, clear and peaceful. What choice does she have but to participate in the ancient dance of giving and receiving? The sound of frogs tonight suddenly feels deeper, like echoes of those grateful prayers rising toward the stars. You let out a quiet, affectionate laugh. Humans really haven't changed much in their beautiful ways, have they? Replace priests with community leaders, and suddenly offerings look remarkably like modern contributions to shared resources. At least the Maya received beautiful ritual performances for their participation, ceremonies, chants, perhaps a sense of cosmic connection. We just get paperwork and tax forms. The moon hangs low and gentle, casting silver light across the treetops, and you can feel the beautiful balance of it all. The Maya mastered astronomy, mathematics, architecture, and water engineering with such skill, yet still their world danced to the rhythms of the sky. You can sense the delicate wisdom here. One too many seasons without generous rain, one too many reservoirs needing renewal, and everything built on these stones would need to transform into something new. And if that doesn't feel familiar in our own world, where water levels dance, rivers seek new paths, and oceans hum with changing songs, then perhaps we simply aren't listening closely to the same eternal rhythms. The plazas begin to feel different now, touched by the gentle rhythm of change. Once, they were alive with dancers and brilliant feathered headdressers, the steady heartbeat of drums, and laughter flowing like water from every corner. But now, you notice the mood has shifted into something more contemplative. Soft conversations flow between stone pillars. Farmers, their hands worn smooth from tending cornfields that now require different wisdom, share quiet concerns. Warriors, marked by countless small journeys, begin to ask deeper questions about the paths they're walking. You see it in their thoughtful eyes. The kings, the Ajawab, still adorned with jade and crowned in Quetzal feathers, requesting tribute as traditions have always guided. But the truth is written gently in every marketplace stall where corn grows differently and ancient ways meet new challenges. In this world, food is not just nourishment, it is the sacred covenant itself, the daily promise between earth and people. And when that covenant begins its natural transformation, trust in old patterns starts to shift like seasons changing. Imagine standing peacefully in Copan's Great Plaza, where once the royal court staged elaborate ceremonies to remind everyone of their connection to divine wisdom. Now the gathered community murmurs thoughtfully as decorated nobles speak of higher tribute needs. The ruler appears radiant as always, but you can sense the gentle questioning beneath the surface. Some people turn their eyes downward in contemplation. Others gaze openly with curious concern. The silence after ceremonies feels fuller now, pregnant with unspoken thoughts about the paths ahead. Civilizations rarely transform in sudden moments. Instead, they change from within, like flowers slowly opening to different light, understanding growing until new patterns emerge. Here, among the Maya, you begin to sense the first gentle stirrings of transformation. Questions arise with every challenging harvest, every ceremony that asks more than before, every campaign against neighboring cities that brings honor but also exhaustion. Changes begin quietly at first, the way dawn creeps slowly across the plaza stones. Villages begin to choose their own timing for tribute. Farmers explore new ways of working their land. Local lords grow thoughtful, discovering their own wisdom about leadership and the needs of their people. You realize the plazas, these stages of loyalty and celebration, are becoming stages of gentle questioning and quiet transformation. The songs of worship now share space with the murmurs of people seeking their own understanding. The community is no longer certain that their rulers, or even their gods in the old ways, can carry them through the changes ahead. The question drifts through the humid air like sweet incense smoke. What happens when belief begins its natural evolution, not in the gods themselves, but in the ways that men claim to speak for them? What emerges when people begin to trust their own connection to the sacred? And perhaps this isn't the end of devotion. Perhaps it's the beginning of a new kind of wisdom, one that flows not from pyramids down to plazas, but up from the gentle earth through the hearts of ordinary people who work with their hands and watch the sky with their own eyes. Perhaps what looks like the breaking of old bonds is actually the growing of new roots, deeper and more widespread than any single temple could contain. The evening breeze carries the scent of copal and corn, and you can almost feel the Maya people discovering something beautiful, that the sacred doesn't live only in carved stone and royal ceremonies, but in every careful gesture of planting, every grateful sharing of harvest, every prayer whispered directly to the rain clouds gathering on the horizon. Change flows through the plazas like a gentle river finding its new course, carrying with it not destruction, but the seeds of transformation that will bloom in ways no carved prophecy could predict. The people are not losing their way, they are finding it, step by careful step, in the eternal rhythm of all living things learning to dance with time. One peaceful morning, you walk through the gates of a city that rests in gentle transition. Stone temples still reaching toward the sky with quiet dignity. Wide plazas designed to echo with voices now holding different conversations. Markets where the rhythm of trade has shifted into new patterns. The air holds a quality of patient waiting. The buildings stand with serene strength, but the people have begun their journey to new places where life calls them. This is not the silence of abandonment, not the emptiness of loss. The temples remain intact, their stones warm in the morning sun. The palaces stand unharmed by fire or storm. It is as though the inhabitants have simply listened to a different song, one that called them toward fresh paths, leaving behind grinding stones still smooth from use, monuments that will wait patiently for their completion, even offerings on household altars that seem to say, "We will return when the time is right." The silence here is expectant rather than final. You feel as though the city is breathing slowly, resting between one chapter and the next, holding space for whatever beautiful story wants to unfold in the seasons ahead. Historians would one day speak of the Maya transformation, but as you walk through these peaceful streets, it doesn't feel like a single event. It feels like a long, gentle flowing, like a river finding a new course through the landscape. One community chooses change, then another. Populations shift like migrating birds following ancient instincts. Trade routes curve toward new opportunities. And the once mighty city-states that define the classic Maya world begin to rest like flowers closing at twilight, their energy flowing toward new growth. You notice how the jungle receives everything with patient grace. Roots explore stone foundations gently, vines drape over stairways like green silk scarves, and strangler figs embrace the temples the way grandmothers hold their grandchildren.
The gods that once received elaborate ceremonies now rest in peaceful meditation, their carved faces softened by gentle rain and time. And yet, this is far from a disappearance. The Maya people haven't vanished. They've danced into new rhythms. They've carried their wisdom to smaller communities, fresh political centers along the coasts and in the highlands where different opportunities bloom. Their culture flows like water, adapting, growing, continuing its ancient songs in new voices. But here, in the hearts of the old ceremonial centers, what you feel most strongly is the presence of patience, the weight of thousands of life stories that once pulsed through plazas, now transformed into gentle echoes that bless these stones with memory. As you prepare to leave the city, you look back once more at the towering pyramid that still catches the light like a beacon. It rises golden at its peak, as though gently refusing to surrender its beauty to time. The structure seems to smile peacefully, knowing that its purpose was never to last unchanged forever, but to hold space for transformation, to stand witness to the eternal dance of human communities finding their way through the beautiful cycles of history. You cannot escape the feeling that this quietude is not an ending, that these once vibrant cities, the crown jewels of a civilization of stone and star wisdom, will continue to serve their purpose in new ways. Perhaps as teachers for future generations, perhaps as sanctuaries for the jungle's creatures, perhaps as meditation halls for wanderers like yourself who come seeking understanding about the gentle nature of all change. The forest doesn't close in behind you, it embraces you, welcoming you into its ancient rhythm, where nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed from one kind of beauty into another. And in that embrace, you understand that what some call collapse, others recognize as the eternal dance of life itself, always moving, always becoming, always finding new ways to express the sacred patterns that flow through all things. Even the stones seem to whisper their agreements as you walk. We have played our part in one great song, and now we rest and listen for the next melody to begin. The cities may have found their rest. The plazas settled into contemplative quiet, the palaces wrapped peacefully in green veils. But the gods? They have simply expanded their dwelling places. You hear them in the gentle thunder that blesses the summer sky, in the soft padding of jaguars walking their midnight paths through the forest, in the crackling of fires lit at dawn by farmers preparing to plant their sacred corn. The transformation of the great cities was never the end of the Maya spirit. Devotion, understanding, and ceremony continue to flow, carried not in towering pyramids anymore, but in the daily rhythms of the people whose hearts remained connected to the eternal patterns. Step gently into a small village, far from the resting ruins of Copan or Tikal. A grandmother kneels before a simple stone shrine, offering warm maize gruel to the four sacred directions with the same reverence her ancestors brought to grand ceremonies. A healer burns sweet copal incense, calling on ancient spirits to guide a sleeping child toward wellness and dreams. The gods are still here, though their names may be whispered more softly now, their rituals woven into the comfortable patterns of daily survival and celebration. And then came the Spanish, carrying their crosses like new constellations. When Spanish priests walked into Maya lands with their bells ringing, they expected to replace the old gods with their single sacred story. They dismantled temples, transformed sacred objects, and built new churches over ancient foundations. Yet, like the jungle that tenderly reclaims all structures, Maya understanding proved as resilient as rivers finding their way around mountains. The gods simply learned new dances. The rain god Chak began appearing in the gentle robes of certain saints. The maize god found echoes in the bread of communion. Festivals honoring ancient cycles of planting and harvest bloomed again as Catholic feast days, carrying their original sacred meaning wrapped in new ceremonial clothing. The newcomers thought they were replacing an old religion, but in truth, they were helping to weave it into something beautifully complex, an unbroken thread of devotion, clothed differently but never severed.
You realize as you watch candlelight flicker before an altar where Mary stands beside small jade offerings that the Maya gods were never confined to the temples. They walk peacefully in two worlds, ancient stone and living jungle, Catholic church and hidden forest shrine. They are not museum pieces gathering dust. They are living presences, as much a part of today's prayers as they were of yesterday's grand ceremonies. The Maya understood something profound about the nature of the sacred, that it flows like water, taking the shape of whatever vessels it finds, but never losing its essential nature. When the old ceremonial cups were broken, the water simply found new containers. When the pyramid altars grew quiet, the sacred fire moved to kitchen hearths and village shrines. And so the transformation was never complete in the way the Spanish priests imagined. The kings may have lost their earthly thrones, the cities may have chosen rest, the scribes' books may have fed different fires, but the gods remained, patient as mountains, flowing like rivers, whispering in the rain, growing in the corn, dancing in the firelight. They simply learned to speak in more languages, to accept more kinds of offerings, to bless more varied ceremonies. They are still here, still listening, still blessing the daily work of planting and harvest, still guiding the cycles of ceremony and celebration. They have not retreated from the world, they have made it entirely their temple, vast as the sky itself, intimate as a grandmother's prayer over evening corn. In the gentle darkness, you can feel their presence not as distant powers demanding grand ceremonies, but as intimate companions walking alongside every person who tends their garden with reverence, who greets the rain with gratitude, who lights a candle with the understanding that some flames have been burning without interruption for thousands of years. The gods never left. They simply learned to dance in more places than palaces, to speak in more voices than priests, to live in more hearts than those of kings. And perhaps that transformation, like all the others, was exactly what they had planned all along. The jungle keeps its secrets with gentle patience, the air soft with the hum of countless small lives, and you're walking through a living cathedral so beautiful and dense it feels like entering a dream. For centuries, the Maya cities rested peacefully beneath this loving canopy. Stone temples becoming hills crowned with flowers, palaces transformed into mysterious cliffs, roads becoming pathways for deer and jaguars. The world didn't forget them exactly, but rather let them sleep deeply while other stories unfolded above ground. And then, like a gentle awakening, they were discovered again. The year flows peacefully into 1839. American explorer John Lloyd Stephens and artist Frederick Catherwood make their way carefully into the deep forests of Honduras and Guatemala, following local guides who have always known these places but never thought to mention them to the outside world. What they encounter fills them with quiet wonder. Pyramids rising like patient mountains, plazas lined with hieroglyphic staircases telling stories in stone, statues of gods and kings whose faces still hold their ancient dignity despite centuries of rain and forest embraces. Catherwood sketches them with loving precision, while Stephens writes to the broader world with gentle excitement that this civilization was not a legend, not a fantasy. It was beautifully, undeniably real, and it was magnificent beyond imagining. Their discoveries kindle a warm kind of curiosity. Scholars, adventurers, and yes, some less gentle souls all find their way to the resting ruins. Some come to learn and understand, others come seeking treasures for distant museums. Ancient stones are carefully transported across oceans, temples are studied and sometimes disturbed. Knowledge is gathered as quickly as artifacts disappear into private collections. Yet through all the attention, both respectful and otherwise, something remarkable unfolds. The Maya begin to speak again across the centuries, not in power, but in memory and wisdom. Archaeologists of the following century approach with more patience and reverence. They slowly uncover entire communities like Palenque, Chichen Itza, Tikal, and Calakmul. Hieroglyphs, once thought mysterious as locked treasure boxes, are gradually, lovingly decoded, their stories flowing out like rivers released from winter ice. Voices that had been resting for 1,000 years begin to whisper again. Kings speaking of their devotion to their people, scribes recording the dance of eclipses, priests noting the gentle cycles of Venus in her eternal pattern across the night sky. For the first time since the Great Transformation, the Maya speak directly to curious hearts again, not through ruins or romantic stories, but through their own words carved patiently into eternal stone. And yet, this rediscovery carries a beautiful irony. The people who tend their gardens in the highlands of Guatemala, who weave their stories into textiles in the villages of Yucatan, who carry their languages like precious songs through the markets of Chiapas, gently remind the world that the Maya never went anywhere. They plant corn by ancient methods, they speak in tongues older than empires, carrying sounds that have flowed unbroken from grandmother to granddaughter across centuries. They keep ceremonies alive, sometimes quietly woven into daily life, sometimes proudly celebrated under the same stars their ancestors watched. The discovery of the Maya, then, reveals a gentle misunderstanding. The scholars and explorers may have stumbled upon abandoned cities as if uncovering a lost world, but the Maya themselves were never lost. They were simply living their lives in different places, following the seasons, raising their children, keeping their stories alive while the outside world looked elsewhere and forgot to pay attention. And as the jungle breathes peacefully around you, as you rest your hand on a temple that rises above the trees like a stone mountain touched by moonlight, you understand. Rediscovery is never really about finding the past. It's about learning to see the present with eyes that recognize the eternal patterns flowing through all things. The same patterns that guided the building of these temples, that guide the growth of corn in today's gardens, that guide your own footsteps along paths that connect all seekers across the gentle bridge of time. The Maya were never lost. They were simply waiting for the world to remember how to see them clearly, not as vanished mysteries, but as living streams flowing from an ancient spring that has never stopped giving its gifts to those who approach with reverence and patience. The story of the Maya flows like a river that never reaches the sea. Always moving, always alive, still being written every day in the gentle hands and warm voices of millions of people who carry their ancestors' wisdom forward like carefully tended flames. If you travel to the highlands of Guatemala, you'll discover bustling markets where women in hand-woven huipiles offer maize, cacao, chilies, and beautiful crafts with patterns that have passed from mother to daughter through generations like precious songs. If you walk peacefully into a village in Yucatan, you'll hear Maya languages, Yucatec, Quiche, Cachiquel, spoken in daily conversations, flowing like streams that refuse to disappear even when the landscape around them changed. But this journey through time hasn't been without its challenges. The Maya have walked through centuries of change, adaptation, and sometimes great difficulty. They have found ways to honor both their ancient traditions and new realities, weaving Catholicism with older ceremonies, learning Spanish while keeping their mother tongues alive, adapting to modern economics while maintaining their connection to the land that has always been their teacher. During the recent past, especially in Guatemala during the 1980s, many Maya communities faced terrible hardships as political conflicts swept through their peaceful villages. Entire communities were scattered like seeds on the wind, their daily rhythms disrupted, their gathering places sometimes abandoned. Yet, like their ancestors who survived the transformation of the great cities, the Maya showed their remarkable ability to endure, to bend without breaking, to carry their essential spirit through the darkest storms. And yet, like plants that grow stronger after surviving harsh weather, the Maya communities found ways to rebuild, to gather again, to continue their ancient dance with time and seasons. Today, over 6 million Maya live peacefully across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. They are farmers who know the secret conversations between seeds and soil, artisans whose hands remember patterns older than written books, teachers sharing both modern learning and ancient wisdom, and community leaders who guide their people with the patient understanding that comes from deep roots. They are also the gentle keepers of traditions that connect earth and sky. They blend Catholic ceremonies with older rituals, honoring both saints and corn spirits, making the sign of the cross in churches while whispering prayers to Ixchel, the moon goddess, and Chak, the rainbringer. Their spiritual life flows like a beautiful river with many tributaries, each adding its own gift to the sacred stream. Their ancient calendar still beats quietly alongside the modern one, like a second heartbeat that keeps time with deeper rhythms. There are daykeepers, wise men and women trained to read the cycles, who help communities choose the most harmonious days for planting, marriages, or important journeys. Their languages, once worried over like endangered flowers, are now being carefully tended, recorded, preserved, and even shared through modern technology as young people send text messages in Quiche and post videos speaking Yucatec. Visitors come from far away to see Maya ruins, often unaware that the descendants of those ancient builders live just beyond the tourist paths, continuing their ancestors' work in quieter ways. At Chichen Itza, while crowds gather to watch the shadow of the serpent gracefully descend El Castillo during the equinox, Maya guides share the story in their own voices, reclaiming the narrative that belongs to them by birth and blood and the patient wisdom of generations. To speak of the Maya only in past tense would be like describing a river by looking only at where it began, ignoring the beautiful journey it continues to make toward the sea. They are not spirits haunting abandoned temples, they are living communities with living voices, still learning the eternal lessons of adaptation that have carried them across centuries like boats crossing an endless lake. Their children go to school and learn about the world beyond their villages, then come home to help with planting corn by methods their great-grandparents would recognize. Their young people leave for cities to find work, then return for festivals where ancient dances are performed under the same constellations that guided their ancestors. Their artists weave traditional patterns into modern designs. Their musicians blend old songs with new rhythms. Their cooks prepare ancient foods with ingredients from both forest and market. And here's the truth that settles peacefully in your heart as you rest among these ruins. The transformation of the great cities was never the end of the Maya story. It was just one gentle chapter in a much longer tale. The real story is continuity, not of monuments, but of people who learned long ago that the secret of survival is knowing when to hold firm and when to flow, when to preserve and when to transform, when to remember and when to dream of what comes next. The Maya are still here, still listening to the rain, still watching the stars, still planting corn with prayers, still weaving stories into beautiful cloth, still dancing the eternal dance between what was and what is becoming. And in that dance, the ancient cities live on, not in stone, but in the gentle rhythm of hearts that have never forgotten how to beat in time with the cosmos itself. What gentle wisdom does the transformation of the classic Maya world offer to us as we rest here in our own time? It's peaceful to see it not just as another chapter in the great book of civilizations, a cautionary tale filed away next to Rome, Angkor, or Easter Island. But the Maya story flows deeper. It whispers soft teachings about how humans and their environments dance together in eternal partnership. At its heart, the Great Change was not a sudden storm. It was a slow, natural shifting, like seasons gradually lengthening or rivers slowly finding new courses to the sea. Many small adjustments built gently until the pattern transformed completely. Rains danced to different rhythms, forests and fields learned new relationships, communities discovered fresh ways of connecting with their neighbors. Kings found that old ceremonies needed new meanings. And then, like morning mist clearing to reveal a changed landscape, the system found its new form. Doesn't this feel familiar in gentle ways?
Today, we too live in cities that spread like growing gardens. We too shape forests and fields, learning how our choices touch the climate itself. We too have leaders who sometimes hold tightly to familiar patterns when adaptation might serve better. And like the Maya, we imagine our world as permanent, as if what we've built with such care could not possibly dance into new forms. But the Maya transformation shows how delicately balanced even the most beautiful systems can be when change comes from many directions at once. It wasn't ignorance that brought transformation. The Maya had extraordinary knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and agriculture that still amazes us today. It wasn't weakness. They built wonders that continue to inspire reverence in all who see them. It was simply the natural vulnerability that comes when any system becomes so specialized, so dependent on particular balances, that it cannot easily bend when the wind changes direction. Yet there is another teaching here, one filled with hope rather than worry. Transformation does not mean the end of a people or their wisdom. The Maya endured, not exactly as they once were, but in new forms that carried forward their essential spirit, still vibrant, still growing toward the light. The story of change is also the story of survival, of cultural streams finding new courses but never running dry. So the gentle question is not only what can we learn to prepare for change, but also how will we adapt when transformation comes to visit us? Because like the seasons, it always does. And like the Maya, we can learn to dance with it rather than resist its natural rhythm. Perhaps we can learn from their understanding that nothing remains unchanged forever, not cities, not governments, not even the climate itself. But also from their deeper knowing that what matters most, the love between people, the gratitude for daily bread, the reverence for the mystery of growing things, these flow like rivers through any landscape, finding new expressions but never disappearing. The Maya teach us that permanence is not found in trying to freeze any particular moment in time, but in staying connected to the eternal patterns that flow through all moments. The cycle of planting and harvest, the rhythm of community and solitude, the dance between receiving and giving back, the gentle balance between remembering ancestors and dreaming of children yet to be born. When we understand these deeper currents, we can hold our own beautiful creations, our cities, our technologies, our art, our ways of governing ourselves with both love and lightness. We can build with passion while knowing that everything we build participates in the great dance of becoming. We can work for the flourishing of our communities while remaining peacefully aware that all communities eventually transform into new communities, carrying forward their gifts in forms we cannot yet imagine. The stones of Tikal and Copan teach us not to fear change, but to trust it as part of the same cosmic creativity that builds mountains and grows forests and guides the patient evolution of all living things toward greater beauty, greater wisdom, greater love. And perhaps most gently of all, they whisper that when our own time of great transformation comes, as it surely will, for such is the nature of all things under the stars, we can meet it not with panic or resistance, but with the same graceful understanding that allowed the Maya to survive the ending of one chapter and write the beginning of the next, still dancing after all these centuries to the eternal rhythms that connect all beings in the great unfolding story of life itself. The classic Maya world found its rest, but the Maya people discovered new rhythms of flourishing. The story didn't pause in the 9th century. It flowed gently into fresh channels, meandering toward new possibilities, like a river finding its way through a transformed landscape. After the great ceremonial centers settled into peaceful quiet, new communities bloomed, not with the same towering grandeur as Tikal or Copan, but with the quiet strength that comes from adaptation and wisdom earned through change. At Chichen Itza, pyramids still climb skyward, but their designs sang with new melodies, influences that spoke of expanded connections, broader horizons, conversations with peoples from distant lands, even as far as the great valleys of central Mexico. The Maya were not clinging to fading memories. They were weaving tomorrow's patterns from threads both ancient and newly discovered.
In villages scattered like seeds across forests and highlands, life continued its essential rhythms. Families planted corn as they had for countless generations, offering the same grateful prayers to the gods of rain and growing things. The old calendar cycles kept turning like prayer wheels, ceremonies marking time's eternal heartbeat. Kings might have found different ways to serve their people, but the cosmology, the sacred understanding of how all things connect, flowed on like an underground river that drought can never touch. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, carrying their bells and crosses, the Maya had already lived through centuries of graceful change. They were no longer the builders of soaring jungle metropolises, but they remained farmers, traders, and community builders, still holding on to their languages like treasured songs, their rituals like family recipes, their deep knowledge of the land like inherited gems. The encounter was challenging. Old ways met new requirements. Familiar patterns learned to dance with foreign rhythms. But here again, the Maya showed their gift for transformation without surrender. Even today, millions of Maya descendants live across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, their presence a gentle testimony that change does not mean disappearance. They speak dozens of Maya languages, passing words from grandparent to grandchild like links in an unbroken chain. They carry on weaving traditions, their hands creating patterns that hold stories older than books. They celebrate festivals that blend influences from different centuries into something entirely their own, neither purely ancient nor purely modern, but beautifully, uniquely themselves. The transformation of the ceremonial centers wasn't an ending, it was a metamorphosis. The jungle may have embraced the great temples, wrapping them in green silence, but the people carried the flame of their culture forward like a torch that has never been extinguished. Their survival is the quiet answer to the mystery of change. Civilizations may transform their outer forms, but humanity itself continues to write new chapters, to find fresh ways of being human, to discover beauty in patterns never tried before. In small villages where children learn both traditional weaving and modern mathematics, where families attend Catholic Mass and also burn copal incense for the corn spirits, where young people leave to study in distant cities but return home for the festivals that connect them to the eternal cycles, in these places, you can see that transformation is not about loss. It's about the endless creativity of life itself, always finding new ways to express the same ancient truths, that people need community, that work is sacred when done with love, that the earth deserves our gratitude, that children carry the future in their laughter. The transformation of the Maya transformers teaches us that cultures are like rivers. They may change their course, they may flow through different landscapes, they may be joined by other streams and become something richer and more complex than they were before. But they never simply disappear. They carry their essential waters forward, nourishing new gardens, reflecting new skies, but always remaining fundamentally themselves, the same sacred flow dressed in new seasonal colors. And so the great ceremonial centers rest peacefully in their jungle temples, holding space for meditation and wonder, while the living culture continues its beautiful journey through time, proving that the end of one chapter is always the beginning of the next, and that the human story, like the story of the flowing river, has no final page, because there are always new territories to explore, new songs to learn, new ways to dance the eternal dance between what was, what is, and what is yet to be born. What gentle understanding does the flowing transformation of the classic Maya world offer to us as we drift peacefully through our own chapter of human history? It would be simple to see their story as just another tale in the great library of civilizations, a thoughtful meditation filed quietly beside the stories of Rome, Angkor, or the peaceful islands of the Pacific. But the Maya story runs deeper. It whispers eternal truths about how humans and their environment learn to dance together through all the seasons of time. At its essence, the Great Transformation was not a sudden breaking, but a gradual opening, like flowers slowly turning toward a sun that has shifted its path across the sky. It was a series of gentle adjustments, patient adaptations, quiet recognitions that the old patterns wanted to become new patterns, until one day the dance itself had transformed into something different but equally beautiful. Rains found new rhythms to follow. Forests discovered fresh relationships with the communities that lived within their embrace. Villages learned different ways of connecting with their neighbors across the landscape. Leaders understood that ceremonies which once served perfectly now needed to evolve to meet new needs. This transformation teaches us something profound about the nature of all human systems. They are not monuments carved in stone, but living patterns that must remain flexible to stay healthy. The Maya created something magnificent, cities that seemed to touch the very stars, knowledge systems that mapped time itself, art that still takes our breath away centuries later. But they also created something wise, a culture that could recognize when its external forms needed to change in order to preserve its essential spirit. What does this gentle wisdom mean for us today? We too live in a time of great creativity and great change. We too have built remarkable systems, technologies that connect us across vast distances, medical knowledge that extends and enriches human life, forms of government that seek to honor the dignity of every person. Like the Maya, we sometimes imagine these achievements as permanent, as if the particular ways we've learned to live could not possibly need to evolve further. But the Maya transformation reminds us that all human creations participate in the great dance of becoming. Nothing remains exactly the same forever, not because of failure or tragedy, but because growth and change are the very nature of life itself. Rivers find new channels, forests mature and regenerate, even mountains slowly change their shape under the patient influence of wind and rain. The profound gift in understanding this is that it frees us from the exhausting effort of trying to prevent all change and invites us instead to participate consciously in the eternal creativity that moves through all things. Like skilled dancers who learn to follow their partner's movements rather than fighting them, we can learn to move gracefully with the changes that want to unfold, helping to guide them toward beauty and wisdom rather than resisting them until they become jarring and disruptive. This doesn't mean accepting everything passively or failing to protect what we love. The Maya didn't simply surrender to change, they participated in it actively, creating new forms of community, new ways of relating to their environment, new expressions of their deepest values. They became partners with transformation rather than its victims. For us, this might mean learning to hold our own beautiful creations, our cities, our technologies, our social systems, our ways of understanding the world, with what we might call loving impermanence. We can pour our hearts into building and improving and nurturing these things, while also remaining peacefully open to the possibility that they may need to evolve, perhaps dramatically, as conditions around us shift. The Maya teach us that the secret of thriving through change lies not in trying to preserve any particular forms forever, but in staying connected to the deeper currents that flow through all forms. The desire to live in harmony with our environment, the need to care for our children and honor our elders, the longing to create beauty and meaning, the impulse to help each other through difficult times, the recognition that we are all part of something larger and more mysterious than any individual life. When we ground ourselves in these eternal patterns, we can approach change not as a threat to be feared, but as an invitation to discover new ways of expressing the same ancient truths that have guided human communities since the very beginning. We can build with passion while holding lightly, create with devotion while remaining flexible, love our achievements while trusting the larger wisdom that sometimes asks us to let them transform into something even more beautiful. And perhaps most gently of all, we can rest in the understanding that our own period of history, however it may change and grow, is part of the same great story that includes the Maya and all the other human communities who have learned to dance with time. We are not separate from that story. We are its newest chapter, carrying forward the same essential human gifts while discovering fresh ways to share them with a world that is always, eternally becoming something new. You've walked gently through the seasons of rising and transformation, through the glories and the peaceful changes. And now you arrive at the eternal echoes, the part of history that never truly ends, that continues to sing in voices both ancient and new. For the Maya are not memories preserved in stone and museums. They live, breathe, and dream, not just in carved glyphs and temple walls, but in the daily rhythms and ongoing stories of millions of people across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Step softly into a modern Maya town, and you will hear languages that trace their gentle roots directly back to the classic world. You'll see weavers creating brilliant textiles filled with symbolic patterns, each thread carrying stories passed down like precious songs from grandmother to granddaughter across centuries of careful preservation. Farmers still plant maize, beans, and squash in the same loving combinations their ancestors perfected, working with the land as partners in an ancient conversation about patience, gratitude, and the sacred nature of growing things. Their spiritual life flows like a river with many tributaries, Catholic saints walking hand in hand with ancient gods, creating a sacred landscape that holds both conquest and continuity in gentle embrace. Ceremonies of fire and incense still rise among the temple stones, just as they did more than 1,000 years ago, proving that some conversations between earth and sky are too important to ever end completely. Even the great ruins are not sleeping places forgotten by time. To visitors from far away, they are archaeological sites filled with fascinating mysteries. To the Maya, they are living landscapes, sacred ground where ancestors still walk among the shadows, where prayers still rise with the morning mist, where the boundary between past and present grows beautifully thin. The pyramids that once carried kings to speak with gods now carry the prayers of people who understand that the sacred conversation never ended, only changed its vocabulary. But the echo is also a gentle question, a soft reminder that the story of the Maya continues to unfold like a flower that blooms in new seasons. Their endurance challenges anyone who thinks that transformation means ending. They demonstrate with quiet grace that history does not stop when civilizations change their outer forms. It bends, flows, adapts, and carries forward in ways both expected and surprising. The Maya are still here, and through their continuing presence, their ancient world still breathes. In village markets where children learn to count in Quiche while also mastering mathematics, in households where families attend Sunday Mass and also burn copal or the corn spirits, in community gatherings where traditional dances are performed under the same constellations that guided their ancestors, in all these places, the past and present dance together in perfect harmony. Their survival carries a profound teaching that the sacred doesn't live only in carved stone and royal ceremonies, but in every careful gesture of planting, every grateful sharing of harvest, every prayer whispered directly to the rain clouds gathering on the horizon, every story told to children who will carry it forward into whatever future awaits. And so the ruins whisper to us, not only of what once was, but of what continues. They remind us that power structures may crumble, that cities may be reclaimed by jungle, but that culture, understanding, and identity can flow like underground rivers through any landscape, emerging in new springs wherever conditions allow them to flourish again. The Maya are still here, their languages are still spoken, their children still play in the shadows of the temples their ancestors built. Their artists still create beauty that speaks in ancient vocabularies with contemporary voices. Their farmers still know the secret names of corn varieties that have fed communities for thousands of years. Their daykeepers still read the sacred calendar, helping people choose the most harmonious moments for important life transitions. Through them, the ancient world lives on, not as a museum piece preserved in glass cases, but as a living tradition that continues to grow, to adapt, to offer its gifts to a world that still needs to remember how to live in respectful partnership with the earth, how to organize communities around care for future generations, how to find the sacred in the ordinary rhythms of daily life. As you rest here at the end of this gentle journey through time, as the jungle night settles peacefully around you, as the stars begin their ancient dance across the sky, you can feel it. The Maya story is not finished. It flows onward like the rivers that still carry runoff from the temple pyramids toward the sea, like the seeds that still germinate in soil enriched by centuries of careful tending, like the prayers that still rise from village altars toward the same patient stars that blessed the first corn planting ceremonies so many seasons ago. The Maya are still here, and through their quiet presence, their ancient wisdom continues to whisper its gentle teachings to anyone willing to listen with the kind of deep attention that recognizes the eternal patterns flowing through all things. The same patterns that guided the building of the great temples, that guide the growth of corn in today's gardens, that guide your own footsteps along the paths that connect all seekers across the beautiful, unending bridge of time. Rest now, knowing that some stories never end, because they are part of the eternal story of how consciousness learns to dance with matter, how humans learn to dance with the earth, how the present moment learns to dance with both memory and possibility in the eternal ceremony of becoming that includes us all. The night air grows softer now, carrying the gentle scent of night-blooming flowers and the distant murmur of water flowing over ancient stones. You find yourself walking slowly along a path that seems to glow faintly in the moonlight, your footsteps silent on the moss-covered flagstones that have guided countless others before you. As you drift deeper into this sacred space, the jungle transforms around you. The harsh edges of ruin and abandonment fade away, replaced by something timeless and nurturing. Here, in this eternal garden, the Maya world lives on, not as memory, but as breathing presence. You pause beside a cecropia tree, its silver leaves whispering secrets in the gentle breeze. Somewhere in the canopy above, a quetzal calls softly, its voice like liquid music floating down through the darkness. The sound reminds you that beauty endures, that some songs continue long after the singers have become part of the earth. Step by step, you wander deeper into the sanctuary where time moves differently. The Maya people you followed through their rise and transformation seem to walk beside you now, not as ghosts, but as guides. Their voices blend with the night sounds, speaking in languages that flow like water over stones, carrying stories from grandmother to grandchild, from seed to harvest, from one generation to the next. You come to rest beside a natural cenote, where the water reflects the stars with perfect clarity. The surface barely ripples, disturbed only by the gentle landing of a night heron that settles on the opposite shore. In this stillness, you understand something profound. Collapse is not an ending, it's a doorway to transformation. The great cities may have emptied, their plazas growing quiet, but the essence of what made them magnificent never disappeared. It flowed like underground rivers into new forms, new expressions of the same eternal human spirit. The Maya didn't vanish, they became the wind in the corn, the rhythm of the loom, the careful hands that plant seeds according to the old calendar, trusting in cycles older than empires. Breath by breath, you feel yourself settling into this deeper truth. The limestone temples around you seem to exhale contentment, as if they too understand that their greatest purpose was never to last forever in stone, but to shelter something more precious: the dreams, the knowledge, the love of a people who saw themselves as part of an endless cosmic dance. You lean back against the smooth trunk of a mahogany tree, its ancient wood warm against your shoulders. Above you, the Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, the same stars that Maya astronomers charted with such devotion, the same celestial calendar that still turns, marking time not in moments of destruction, but in eternal cycles of renewal. The jungle breathes around you with infinite patience. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the soft splash of a fish jumping in still water, the gentle rustle of an iguana settling for the night, the whispered conversation of leaves dancing in the breeze. These sounds weave together into a lullaby older than civilization, a song that the earth itself has been singing since long before the first pyramid rose from the forest floor. In this eternal garden, you realize that every ending is also a beginning. The Maya showed us this truth through their own transformation, how a people can endure not by clinging to what was, but by flowing like water into new containers, carrying their essence forward through whatever changes time may bring. Your eyelids grow heavy as you rest in this timeless place. The weight of all you've witnessed, the glory of the cities, the wisdom of the astronomers, the resilience of the people settles gently around you like a soft blanket. You understand now that you are part of this story too, connected by invisible threads to everyone who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered about their place in the vast dance of existence. The moon drifts slowly across the sky, casting silver light through the canopy, and in that gentle illumination, the boundaries between past and present dissolve. The Maya world lives on, in every seed planted with ceremony, every story told by firelight, every moment when humans choose to see themselves as part of something larger and more enduring than their individual lives. You lean back against the smooth trunk of a mahogany tree, its ancient wood warm against your shoulders. Above you, the Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, the same stars that Maya astronomers charted with such devotion, the same celestial calendar that still turns, marking time not in moments of destruction, but in eternal cycles of renewal. The jungle breathes around you with infinite patience. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the soft splash of a fish jumping in still water, the gentle rustle of an iguana settling for the night, the whispered conversation of leaves dancing in the breeze. These sounds weave together into a lullaby older than civilization, a song that the earth itself has been singing since long before the first pyramid rose from the forest floor. In this eternal garden, you realize that every ending is also a beginning. The Maya showed us this truth through their own transformation, how a people can endure not by clinging to what was, but by flowing like water into new containers, carrying their essence forward through whatever changes time may bring. Your eyelids grow heavy as you rest in this timeless place. The weight of all you've witnessed, the glory of the cities, the wisdom of the astronomers, the resilience of the people, settles gently around you like a soft blanket. You understand now that you are part of this story too, connected by invisible threads to everyone who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered about their place in the vast dance of existence. The moon drifts slowly across the sky, casting silver light through the canopy, and in that gentle illumination, the boundaries between past and present dissolve. The Maya world lives on, in every seed planted with ceremony, every story told by firelight, every moment when humans choose to see themselves as part of something larger and more enduring than their individual lives. As you drift towards sleep in this sacred garden, you carry with you the greatest gift the Maya left behind. Not their pyramids or their gold, but their understanding that we are all temporary guardians of something eternal. The corn will grow again next season, the stars will continue their ancient dance, And somewhere, always, the story continues, flowing like an underground river into futures we cannot imagine, but can trust to unfold with the same patient wisdom that guided the Maya through their 1,000 years of transformation.